They say something used to live on this island before anyone settled it. Not a god, not exactly. We flew into the island on a puddle jumper so small that Theo had to put his backpack on his lap. It only makes the trip once every 5 days, always landing after dark, on a bare strip of dirt that hardly qualifies as a runway. By the time we landed, all 4 of us had decided we'd made the right call skipping the hotel. The house we'd booked sat right on the southern shore, white stucco, a wraparound deck, and nothing else around it for almost a mile in either direction, except scrub pine and rock. Me, my girlfriend Mara, my oldest friend Theo, and his girlfriend Elena. 5 days, no plans, no itinerary, just sun, water, and the kind of quiet you pay extra for. The caretaker who handed us the keys was an old man named Doru, weathered, the way people get when they've spent a whole life outdoors. And before he left, he said something that none of us thought much about at the time. "You hear something at night," he said, not quite looking at any of us. "You don't go outside, you don't go looking. You understand?" Theo laughed, asked if he meant wild boar. Doru didn't answer that. He just got back in his little truck and drove off down the dirt track. And we didn't think about it again until the second night, sitting around a fire pit on the deck with grilled fish and a bottle of wine that was mostly gone. It was Elena who brought it up. She'd read about the island before we booked, some forum thread buried 6 pages deep, and after the second glass of wine, she decided we needed to hear it too. "There's a story," she said. "Old one. The locals don't really talk about it to tourists, but it's out there if you look. They say something used to live on this island before anyone settled it. Not a god, not exactly. More like something the island made on its own, a long time ago. And it's been here longer than any of the families who live here now." "Something like what?" Mara asked. "They never describe it much. Just tall. Always at the edge of where you can see, never closer unless it wants to be. And there's one rule that shows up in every version of the story, every single time." Elena leaned forward into the firelight. "You never look it in the eyes. If it ever gets close enough to ask you to look at it, you don't. Because once it has your eyes, it has you. That's the whole story. That's the only rule anyone remembers." "Ask you to look at it," Theo repeated. "What? It just walks up and says please?" "They say it says 3 words, just 3. Elena's voice had gone quieter, performing it a little, enjoying the spook of her own story. "Look at me." Nobody said anything for a second. Then Theo burst out laughing, and that broke it. We all laughed with him, because 4 drinks in, on a warm night, on a beautiful island, a campfire story about a faceless thing that wants eye contact is exactly as silly as it sounds. We banked the fire and went to bed not long after. I remember being the last one up, and I remember it being a completely ordinary kind of tired. The good kind, sun and salt water tired. Everything was fine until our 4th night. I woke up a little after 1 in the morning, realizing I'd left my phone charger in the rental car, parked maybe 20 meters off to the side of the house. I padded out to the front room in the dark. Theo and Mara were both still up, sprawled on the couch with the lamp on, half watching something on a laptop with the volume low. I stopped at the door to grab the keys off the hook, and that's when I looked out the side window, the one that faces the tree line. There was something standing under the pines. I want to be careful about how I describe this, because it was almost 1 in the morning and there was no moon to speak of, and the trees start maybe 40 meters from the house. What I actually saw was a shape, tall, upright in a way that didn't read as a tree, or a post, or anything I could name. Still, just a darker piece of dark, standing exactly where the tree line broke into a gap. My throat completely closed up. Every instinct I possessed screamed that there was something fundamentally wrong with what I was looking at. I took a slow, trembling step backward, trying to force my brain to process it, trying to find my voice to warn the others. When I blinked, the shape was gone. Theo and Mara both laughed when I finally choked out what I'd seen. The way you laugh at someone who's clearly spooked themselves over nothing. Half a bottle of wine and an island ghost story doing exactly what they're designed to do. Mara said I'd probably seen a goat. Theo said I'd seen my own imagination. And then, directly from behind the front door, close enough that all three of us flinched at once, a voice spoke. It wasn't human. It was utterly hollow. A dead, flat vibration that rattled against the wood of the door. Look at me. Nobody laughed after that. We sat, absolutely still. The laptop kept playing something cheerful and tinny in the background, and none of us moved to turn it off, because turning it off meant moving, and moving felt in that moment like the single worst idea any of us could have. Elena came out of the bedroom a minute later, drawn by our silence rather than the sound itself. We told her in whispers, and her face went the color of the wall. We moved to the center of the house, all four of us. Mattresses dragged off the beds into the living room. Every light killed except for one phone flashlight pointed at the ceiling, so we'd have something other than total dark. We sat in a tight knot on the floor, and we listened. It came to the windows. Not constantly. And that was almost the worst part. The gaps, long stretches of nothing, long enough that you'd start convincing yourself it had moved on. And then, a soft, deliberate weight against the glass on the east side of the house. Silence. Then the back door, the handle turning very slowly, testing, never forcing. Silence again. Then the window above the kitchen sink. Just a faint scrape, like something dragging a single finger down the outside of the pane. It went on like that until almost 6 in the morning, when the sky started turning gray, and sometime in that gray, it simply stopped. Sitting around the table in the flat morning light, we realized exactly how trapped we were. The puddle jumper only came once every 5 days, meaning it wouldn't arrive until tomorrow night. There was no airport terminal on the island, no staff, no buildings at all, just a bare dirt runway, exposed to the open scrub. If we went there now, we'd be sitting ducks for an entire day and night. We only had one option. We had to endure one more night in the house. We would lock everything down, wait out the darkness, and then time our escape. The plan was to run for the car, drive as fast as we could, and pull onto the airstrip exactly as the plane was touching down. We had to stay in permanent motion. We told ourselves we could do it. We spent the day planning, plotting the exact route, mapping out the 20 meters to the car. But by the time the sun started going down, the dread in that house was suffocating. The final night was worse. It started with a stone against the side wall, hard enough that all four of us heard it from inside. Then another, a few minutes later, from a different wall entirely. Then the scratching started on the front window. Not a single careful drag this time, but something fast and insistent. Nails or claws or something with neither, raking the glass in long, uneven strokes. The back door took the worst of it. 3 heavy strikes, evenly spaced, like something testing exactly how much force the hinges could take before they gave. Elena was crying without making a sound. The kind of crying you do when you've trained your whole body not to make noise. Mara had both hands pressed flat against my back, like she was trying to keep me anchored to the floor. Theo kept saying, very low, "It's just trying to scare us. It's just trying to scare us." And none of us believed him. including him. By 2 in the morning, the back door was bowing inward. We couldn't wait any longer. We had to move. Theo said, "Now!" And we went. I went first, out the front, sprinting flat out across the dark yard toward the shape of the car. Halfway there, my foot caught on something low to the ground, a root, a rock, I genuinely don't know, and I went down hard. The wind knocked clean out of me, gravel biting into my palms. I started to push myself up. I started to lift my head, and then a hand closed around the back of my neck and wrenched my head down, hard, fingers digging in with a strength I didn't know Mara had in her. "No," she said. Her voice was shaking so badly the word barely held together. "Don't. Move." I understood, somewhere underneath the panic, exactly why she'd done it. It was in front of me. She'd put me face down in the dirt so that I couldn't see what was standing there. I froze with my cheek against the gravel, every part of me screaming to run, and every part of me too terrified to, slowly, against every instinct telling me not to. I lifted my eyes. Feet first. I saw the feet first, bare, far too long in the arch. The skin a gray-white that didn't look like skin at all, so much as something stretched over a frame that wasn't quite the right shape underneath. I let my eyes climb, an inch at a time. Legs too long for the body above them. The proportions wrong in a way my brain kept trying and failing to correct, like staring at a reflection in a warped mirror. By the time I reached the shoulders, I had to tip my head back to keep going, and that was when I made myself stop, because I understood, with total animal certainty, that if I kept lifting my eyes, I was going to reach its face. It was close enough that I could hear it breathing, slow, deliberate, wet, in a way that breathing shouldn't be. It spoke in a low, dead tone. "Look at me." The hollow, vibrating voice was right above me. It was flat and patient and almost gentle, the way you'd coax a frightened animal, and that gentleness was so much worse than if it had screamed. I didn't move. My heart slammed hard enough that I could feel it behind my eyes. It shifted its weight. I felt the change in the air pressure between us. Behind me, Elena let out a single broken sound, the cry she'd been holding in all night finally cracking loose for half a second, before she clapped both hands over her own mouth. The thing turned toward her. I heard it move, not footsteps, just a shift, a redirection, and I heard Theo's breath catch as it crossed in front of him. It said nothing this time. I heard Elena make a small, strangled noise of pure animal fear. And then, nothing at all. There was no scream, no sound of tearing or running. The crushing, heavy atmosphere that had settled over the yard simply vanished. It was as if a vacuum had been unsealed, slowly, terrifyingly. Mara loosened her grip on my neck. I kept my eyes on the dirt for another 10 seconds before I finally dared to look up. It was gone, not retreating into the trees, instantly, impossibly gone, as if it had never been there in the first place. I scrambled up, my knees shaking, frantically scanning the dark. Theo was already up, staring at the empty space. And then, I looked at Elena. She was standing next to the car, slowly brushing dust off her jeans. Her face was completely slack, devoid of the sheer terror that had been breaking her apart for the last 48 hours. "Come on," she said. Her voice was perfectly, unnervingly calm. "We should go." It was the strangest, most deeply wrong thing I had ever witnessed, but the survival instinct overrode the questions. We piled into the car. Theo drove us straight to the airstrip, hitting the dirt runway just as the landing lights of the puddle jumper cut through the sky above us. Our momentum never paused until we were thousands of feet in the air. None of us has talked about going back. I'm writing this from my own house, months later, an ocean away from that island. I haven't seen the others much since we got back. But yesterday morning, my phone rang. It was Theo. His voice was brittle, trembling with a panic that made my stomach drop before he even finished his sentence. Elena is gone. She didn't pack a bag. She didn't leave a note. Theo said she was standing in the kitchen, perfectly still, staring at the wall. He turned his back to fill a glass of water, and when he turned around, the room was empty. She simply vanished. 2 hours ago, I went down to the basement to grab a box of decorations. It was quiet down there, the thick, insulated kind of quiet. But as I reached for the cardboard box, a sound cut through the silence of the room. Breathe in, breathe out. Slow, deliberate, wet, in a way that breathing shouldn't be. The sound wasn't coming from the stairs, it was coming from the wall. My blood turned to ice, my limbs locking up exactly the way they had in the dirt on that island. I didn't want to look. I tried with everything I had to keep my eyes on the floor, but my gaze drifted up, toward the small window set high in the basement wall, the one sitting precisely at ground level outside, standing in the dirt just outside the glass, perfectly still, bare feet, too long in the arch. It found me.